We've seen what happens when nothing happens to resolve tensions between Israel and the Palestinians. So what needs to happen to stop the violence? Today in Gaza, the funerals. We hear from the Israeli minister responsible for Gaza.
I understand you feel their pain. How about feeling our pain here? I know we appear to be the big Goliath there. We're a tiny country that is surrounded by many hundreds of thousands of people, many of them who want to destroy us.
We'll ask the spokesman for the Palestinian party, Fatah, what hope is there now for a peace process? Hello. There was relative calm in Gaza today, with Israelis and Palestinians mostly counting the cost of yesterday's violence. For Israelis, it's the diplomatic and reputational cost. For the Palestinians, the cost has been measured in tens of lives. They were burying the 58 people killed yesterday. 2 more lives were lost today. At the UN Security Council, there was an emergency debate. Nikki Haley, the US ambassador, was something of an outlier in arguing that Israel had acted with restraint. She walked out of the session when the Palestinian representative began to speak. Well, if yesterday's violence was a symptom of an underlying, unresolved struggle between two peoples, is any attention being paid to the cause? Does President Trump have a plan for the Palestinians other than to tell them to live with the reality of Israeli occupation? Does anyone? Let's hear from Mark Urban.
It's been a day of grief and anger in Gaza. Dozens of people gunned down in yesterday's violence were laid to rest. Little wonder then that feelings across the narrow coastal strip have been so sombre.
The mood has been extremely sad. There have been a lot of funerals today. A lot of people just saying goodbye to their loved ones. In my neighborhood, there have been funerals yesterday, actually, right after or during the protests. 3 funerals passed by my house.
There were clashes today also, but at a much lower intensity. The mosques had not appealed for demonstrations, and people who did turn out faced tear gas dropped by Israeli drones.
If they choose to send people forward to try to dismantle the fence or to attack Israeli troops, then the immediate consequences are that we continue to defend ourselves, and then there are casualties on the other side.
How to contain this violence? There were calls today, not least in London, for an international inquiry into yesterday's events.
There is an urgent need to establish the facts of what happened yesterday through an independent and transparent investigation, including why such a volume of live fire was used and what role Hamas played in events.
But when Gaza was debated in the UN Security Council this afternoon, the American ambassador defended Israel to the hilt.
I asked my colleagues here in the Security Council, who among us would accept this type of activity on your border? No one would. No country in this chamber would act with more restraint than Israel.
And then she walked out when the Palestinian ambassador was speaking.
Well, I have to say that Trump has sent his envoy. His son-in-law came about 18 times with his envoy Greenblatt to see the Palestinian leadership. There were constructive discussions. They were emphasizing that Trump will not stand idle. He will come forward with a plan. Instead, they have received a shocking move to relocate the American embassy. They've seen a total denial and more speeches at the UN where the Palestinians' rights were totally ignored.
Yesterday's embassy opening provoked a deep chill with the Palestinians. They've tonight recalled their representative in the US in protest. President Trump, though, has implied there could be a quid pro quo for the embassy move.
Siding with Israel, especially on these 2 very crucial issues, the JCPOA, the Iran deal most of all, also can give cachet to the American administration. After all, if you think of the peace process, it's Israel that's being asked to make concessions in a sense, or to give back territory and take some risks. And usually the American position has been, therefore we have to stand by Israel and make sure the Israelis are willing to take that risk. The Trump administration can credibly say that more than anyone recently, at least, they are able to convey to the Israelis that they have their back if they were to ask something of the Israelis.
The blockade, the deaths, and the war of words are all facets of the current diplomatic stalemate. And after so many false dawns, it would take visionary leadership to revive hope in negotiations right now.
Mark Urban there. Well, earlier I spoke to Michael Oren, the Deputy Minister for Diplomacy in the Israeli government and the former Israeli ambassador to the US. I asked him about the Palestinians who believe East Jerusalem should be the capital of their state. Can he understand why they are angry if that's not on offer?
Israel annexed East Jerusalem in July 1967, 51 years ago.
Yeah.
This is not new. That has been our policy since then. There's one Jerusalem. We don't even consider East Jerusalem East Jerusalem. There's only one Jerusalem. Yes, the world has not accorded with it. Right now, we have the United States being the first country to move its embassy there, and we're very, very grateful for it, and other countries will follow. What can I say? If the Jewish people and the Jewish state did everything according to the international community, I wouldn't be sitting here and you wouldn't be interviewing me.
Well, look, the question is it on offer? Are you willing to make the serious compromises that the Palestinians feel need to be made to get them back into the negotiations? Now, I know you'll say, well, they've got to make compromises too. But at the moment, they are the weak ones. They don't have the weapons. They don't have one contiguous piece of land. I just wonder whether you are willing to be the kind of the big guys in the room and say, let's sort this out and make some grand gestures. Now, is Israel willing to do that? And, by the way, also address issues of settlements in the West Bank?
It seems to me if the Palestinians really wanted a state, if they really wanted to live side by side with us in peace, they'd come to the table without making concessions. We understand that once they get to the table, everybody's got to make concessions. That's the nature of negotiations. Right. It won't be easy for us. I'm speaking now as a member of Israel's government, the member of the parliament. Trust me, it won't be easy for us.
Right.
But it won't be easy for them too. No one's going to get anywhere unless they come to the table.
They worry that Israel is just getting a little bit too comfortable with the status quo. Palestinians trapped behind walls, locked behind fences, kept away, and Israel just carrying on, occupying a lot of land that does not belong to Israel. And they're just thinking, this is getting stuck here. What would you do, Dr. Oren? What would you do if you were an angry Palestinian who wanted to change the status quo and sees Israel all too comfortable with it?
That's a legitimate question. If I were that Palestinian, I'd come to the negotiating table. And I'd say, I'd take up President Trump's offer. President Trump offered publicly twice to exact a concession for Israel in return for opening that embassy. But the Palestinians are not missing an opportunity to miss an opportunity. Israel's got to be the only country in the world which, on repeated times, has offered to redivide its eternal capital, offered to divide it with the Palestinians. And the Palestinians not only rejected it, they rejected it with violence. When we offered them that deal in 2000 and again in 2001, we had 1,000 Israelis killed by terrorist bombings, many of them in Jerusalem. So, you know, I understand you feel you want to feel their pain. How about feeling our pain here? And you know, I know we appear to be the big Goliath there. We're a tiny country that is surrounded by many hundreds of thousands of people, many of them who want to destroy us.
I'm sorry,
and
you're asking
are
me,
not being
Dr.
passive
Oren,
about
you're
it.
asking me to feel your pain when 60 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli guns yesterday and one Israeli troop was slightly injured in that day of exchanges. And you're saying, feel our pain, don't feel the pain of the Palestinians. Come on. I'm trying to get from you that you are big enough to say, guys, we're going to make concessions because we're the power here and you are weak. But it sounds to me, from everything you're saying, that you're not up for that.
But that's not why. I actually say Israel has repeatedly come to the table, repeatedly offered to make concessions, has put maps on the table. They've all been rejected by the Palestinians. You know, they're not taking us up on this, and I don't know why you're not hearing them, because they keep on saying it over and over again. It's like what's happening in Gaza. Hamas burns the food, burns the fuel, creates a humanitarian crisis, sends people up to the fence to get shot because they're going to break through the fence because we have to defend our fence. And what does your television station do? You're basically an accessory to the terror. You say to Hamas, hey, this is working great. This is a great tactic. Keep doing it. Send some more kids up to the fence.
Right. We actually don't say that.
You're an
and
accessory to terror.
I would stress that a lot of people worry about the broken government or the broken state that exists in Gaza. And you know, there will be multiple reasons for that. But fixing Palestinian society is a task for everybody. Look, let me just ask you one last one. Nikki Haley got up at the United Nations Security Council and left just as the Palestinian representative started speaking. Is that a way, do you think, for Israel and the United States to show that they are listening and feeling the pain of the Palestinians in a way that is going to advance a settlement of this awful crisis?
I am not a spokesman for Nikki Haley, nor for the American administration. All I know is I sit around and listen to a lot of abuse by Palestinians and others. But I do have this one question. Do you know what's happening in Syria today? The Syrian army is attacking the Yarmouk Palestinian refugee camp outside of Damascus. There are hundreds, maybe thousands of Palestinians being killed. Do you care when Arabs... Do you care when Arabs kill Arabs, or only when Jews have to kill Arabs because they're forced to defend themselves?
I prefer to ask them not to answer them.
Of course you don't.
It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Of course you don't. Of course you don't. Thank you. Bye.
Well, I'm joined from Jerusalem by Ziad Khalil Abu Zayed, who is the international media spokesperson for Fatah. That's the Palestinian party which dominates the West Bank and is headed by Palestinian Authority leader Mahmoud Abbas. A very good evening to you. I wonder whether, Ziad, you have any sympathy for the Israeli position, that they do actually feel, and they can quote words that Palestinians say, that they feel that the Palestinians do not mean them well, and it makes difficult for them to negotiate and deal with attacks on the border.
It's actually like asking from the victim to sympathize with the occupation force, which just killed 60 Palestinians, civilian Palestinians, including 3 children and 1 lady and a child, a baby child that is only a few months old. Then today to come to the news and see such a statement that came by the Interior Security Minister Ardan, who is the Israeli one, who said when he was asked what is the reason for killing so many civilians on the Israeli media, he answered saying that there is no difference between those killed on the Palestinian side and the Nazis that would be killed in any war, such as the Second War. Such a sympathy can be found when we hear such statements, and the complete denial of the Palestinian right to go out and have their freedom of expression, to go out and say that enough is enough. Gaza is not a state. Gaza is a city that is under siege from all of the directions around it, and Israel is responsible for the situation that has been going on there. The people who went out into these demonstrations are sick of the situation that they have been living for a long, long time now, and wanted to say to the world that we have the right to call for equality and our basic rights.
Well, let me put this to you. If you could persuade the Israelis that you meant well to a certain degree, the whole thing might be unlocked. But at the moment, maybe the Palestinians are giving the Israelis the pretext to use violent force to keep the Palestinians behind those fences. Now, let me ask you this. Do you, for example, accept the existence of Israel unambiguously and clearly in its, say, 1967 borders or something close to them?
If you go back to 2006, since President Mahmoud Abbas took the lead of the country, he applied the roadmap and the quarterly committee that demanded from him a lot of sacrifices for the sake of reaching somewhere in the negotiations process that was unfortunately used by the Israeli government one after the other to administrate the conflict. If you go back to the Arab Peace Initiative that was signed by more than 50 Arab and Muslim countries who said that they're ready to go into an immediate peace treaty with Israel in exchange for an Israeli recognition of the Palestinian existence on their occupied 67 lands. And the only answer that we got since the days of Ariel Sharon until today is simply a negative answer.
So I'll take that as a yes. You do recognize the right of Israel to exist. Can you help me out? Why is there not a current peace process? They say you guys must come to the negotiating table. I'm trying to understand why there is no process. What is your explanation for that?
The explanation is that we negotiated the peace process for more than 25 years, and the only thing we got back from the Israelis is a continuous process of administrating the conflict until we reached a situation where today's Bibi government says that it does not even recognize the Palestinians' right to live in a state of their own. The question today is for the Israeli government that sooner or later, and it's a matter only of few years, they will be facing a new reality in which they're surrounded by millions of Palestinians, that they will be calling for equality and basic human rights. Will they be able to say no also for equality? I don't think so. It will be a conflict similar to South Africa that would lead all of us into a more difficult conflict. conflict in the region because of the stubbornness and unbelievable belief that the Israeli government holds, which completely denies the Palestinian right in their lands and their basic human rights.
Ziad, thanks for talking to us, and I hope you did hear we did put some of those kinds of questions to the Israeli minister as well. Thanks.